When empires fell, the victors did not only seize lands, they seized lives. Noblewomen, once sheltered by status and privilege, were dragged into a world of fear, humiliation, and coercion. Behind the gilded halls of conquest lay secret tortures, not always physical, but psychological, social, and emotional. Today, we uncover the dark reality these women endured, the unspoken horrors of empire that history often leaves unrecorded. The fall of an empire was rarely confined to armies and battlegrounds. It extended into the intimate, controlled lives of the nobility, particularly the women who once held privilege as a shield. Queens, princesses, and noblewomen suddenly found themselves stripped of power, status, and safety, their lives dictated entirely by the whims of the conquerors. Physical captivity was only the beginning. Many were confined to quarters under strict supervision, their movements monitored, their attendants replaced by those loyal to the new regime. Meals, clothing, and even conversations were controlled. Every act, however mundane, became a potential threat or instrument of manipulation. Psychological torment was equally pervasive. Noblewomen were forced to witness the suffering of their family members, endure public humiliations, or participate in rituals designed to demonstrate their submission. The conquerors understood that breaking a woman's spirit could fracture the loyalty of an entire former kingdom. Fear, shame, and uncertainty became constant companions. Social isolation amplified their suffering. Former allies and friends were often removed, killed, or coerced into serving the conquerors. Without networks of support, these women faced despair that could be as lethal as physical torture. Letters and messages from loved ones were intercepted, and trusted courtiers replaced with spies. Trust became a dangerous luxury. Even within these constraints, some women found ways to endure. Through careful observation, subtle compliance, and discreet communication, they navigated their captors' whims. Survival required intellect as much as courage, and the ability to read hidden motives could mean the difference between life and death. These noblewomen were pawns, symbols, and vessels of political control. They were displayed to courts, paraded before armies, and forced into roles meant to legitimize the conqueror's dominance. Each forced smile, each coerced bow, each silent act of resistance was part of a hidden war. One fought not with swords, but with fear, manipulation, and unyielding control. The hidden tortures endured by noblewomen were as strategic as any battle. Conquerors wielded them as weapons, ensuring that power shifted completely, not only on the battlefield but in the hearts, minds, and spirits of those who had once ruled. The consequences were long-lasting, shaping alliances, succession, and political landscapes in ways that history often ignores. The experiences of these women reveal a harsh truth. Empire conquest was never only about land, it was about complete domination, and noblewomen bore the heaviest, often invisible price. Once captured, noblewomen faced a relentless combination of physical and psychological torment designed to break their will. Conquerors understood that controlling these women meant controlling the remnants of the defeated society. Every action, every command, every restriction was a calculated strategy to instill fear and submission. Some were forced into marriages with men they had never met, turning intimacy into a tool of political manipulation. These unions were rarely about protection or alliance. They were exercises in domination. Resistance was dangerous. Refusal could mean execution, exile, or lifelong captivity under harsher conditions. Compliance was survival, but it came at the cost of personal autonomy and dignity. Public humiliation was another common tactic. Noblewomen were paraded before armies, courts, and local populations, often adorned in garments meant to signify defeat or submission. Their former status became a spectacle, a reminder that power had shifted. Every glance, every gesture, every expression was scrutinized. A single misstep could trigger punishment or further degradation. Isolation intensified the cruelty. Former allies, trusted advisors, and even family members were often separated, imprisoned, or executed. Letters, gifts, and messages were intercepted. Support networks evaporated, leaving the women vulnerable to manipulation and exploitation. Trust became an impossible luxury. Yet, even in these dire circumstances, many noble women demonstrated remarkable resilience. Through subtlety, observation, and cunning, they learned to navigate the oppressive environment. Quiet acts of defiance, coded messages, discreet alliances, or carefully timed interventions, allowed them to retain a sliver of influence, even under constant surveillance. Their survival was as much a mental battle as a physical one. The conqueror's manipulation extended beyond the private chambers. Noblewomen were used as symbols of political legitimacy, proof that the old regime had been vanquished. By controlling them, conquerors sent a powerful message to the people. Resistance was futile, and power had permanently shifted. The women's suffering was instrumental, a psychological weapon wielded across generations. Even years after conquest, the scars, both visible and invisible, remained. Many noblewomen endured lifelong trauma, from forced public appearances to the constant fear of reprisal. Their endurance highlights a harsh reality. Conquest was not only measured in territory gained but in the domination of those who once held power, and noblewomen bore the heaviest burden of all. The psychological torment often surpassed the physical hardships. Conquerors exploited the women's knowledge, social connections, and influence, turning them into tools of control. A princess or duchess could be forced to relay messages, negotiate on behalf of the conqueror, or even betray former allies, all while under threat of punishment. Every action was a test of loyalty, a trap designed to break their spirit and manipulate entire populations. Captivity also came with relentless surveillance. Every word, every glance, every hesitation was scrutinized by guards, servants, and rival courtiers. Private conversations were impossible, and even expressions of grief or defiance could be reported and punished. In such an environment, the women learned that silence could be a shield, and obedience could be a strategy. Survival became an intricate balance of fear, cunning, and patience. The social isolation magnified their suffering. Noblewomen who once commanded respect were reduced to spectacles, often confined to quarters, denied companionship, and subjected to ridicule. They watched as their families' fortunes collapsed, as friends disappeared, and as the world they knew was erased. The mental strain was immense, eroding trust and self-confidence, while forcing them to develop extraordinary resilience. Yet, within this darkness, subtle acts of resistance emerged. Some women used their intellect to influence decisions behind the scenes, advising captors in ways that benefited their former people or safeguarded their own dignity. Others leveraged relationships with sympathetic guards or court officials, creating fragile alliances that could mean the difference between life and death. Each small victory was hard-won, a testament to strategic thinking under extreme pressure. Their stories reveal a brutal truth. The horrors of conquest were not limited to battlefields. Noblewomen bore the invisible burdens of empire, enduring psychological warfare, public shaming, and relentless manipulation. A hidden history of suffering, resilience, and survival that shaped the course of entire societies. By this stage, the constant manipulation and surveillance had created a world where every move carried danger. Noblewomen had to navigate a complex network of power, where allies could turn enemies at a moment's notice, and even the most loyal attendants might be spies. Their intelligence, diplomacy, and foresight became tools for survival, often the only means of maintaining a sense of agency within captivity. Physical hardships were only part of their suffering. Many women were subjected to deprivation, forced labor, or humiliating tasks designed to remind them of their reduced status. Conquerors often enforced rituals that symbolized submission, standing for hours in public ceremonies, performing menial tasks, or being dressed in ways that marked them as conquered. These acts were intended to break the spirit, yet some women endured them with quiet defiance, finding strength in their endurance. Isolation became a weapon. Noblewomen were cut off from their families, mentors, and supporters, leaving them vulnerable to emotional manipulation. Letters were censored, visits restricted, and trusted companions removed. In these moments of solitude, women were forced to confront fear, grief, and uncertainty. Yet, many developed remarkable mental fortitude, learning to read situations, anticipate threats, and adapt strategies to protect themselves and others. Even within captivity, some women wielded subtle influence. They acted as intermediaries between captors and the local populace, negotiated for better treatment, or safeguarded the vulnerable by leveraging their remaining authority. These acts required immense courage, patience. The psychological scars were profound. Grief for lost families, anxiety over personal safety, and the pressure of constant performance left lasting effects. Still, These women demonstrated extraordinary resilience. Every forced gesture, every humiliating parade, and every moment of coerced submission was met with inner strength, strategic thinking, and occasional quiet defiance. They survived not by brute force, but through intellect, patience, and an acute understanding of power. History may label them victims, pawns, or footnotes, yet the reality is far more complex. They were survivors navigating impossible circumstances, tacticians working within constraints, and quiet architects of influence who shaped the political and social landscapes of their time. Through their endurance, they challenged the very systems designed to erase them, proving that resilience can exist even in the darkest chapters of oppression. Ultimately, the story of these noblewomen is a testament to human strength. It reveals how power can be wielded even under extreme coercion and how survival often requires a combination of courage, wit, and discretion. Their lives remind us that history is not only written by the victors but also shaped by those who endured, resisted, and subtly redefined the terms of their captivity. And discretion. A single misstep could result in punishment or death, but the reward was survival and the preservation of dignity. Conquerors understood the symbolic power of noblewomen. Their humiliation, obedience, or resistance communicated messages to both the conquered and the conqueror's allies. By controlling their bodies, actions, and reputations, rulers reinforced authority and instilled fear. Yet these women often found ways to subvert expectations, quietly shaping political landscapes while outwardly conforming to the imposed roles. The legacy of these women extended far beyond their immediate circumstances. Though history often records only victories and losses on the battlefield, the psychological battles endured by noble women shaped dynasties, influenced governance, and preserved cultural knowledge. Their resilience in the face of oppression offers a sobering reminder of the unseen costs of empire and the strength required to endure what the conquerors sought to erase. The final chapter in the lives of these noblewomen reveals both tragedy and resilience. Thrones shifted, empires rose and fell, yet the experiences of these women left indelible marks on history. Their suffering was not merely personal, it was deeply political. The torment they endured, forced obedience, public humiliation, and constant surveillance, was a weapon wielded by conquerors to solidify control. Yet, within these constraints, many carved out spaces of influence, turning captivity into a form of subtle power. Even under extreme oppression, some women became vital figures behind the scenes. Through careful counsel, discreet diplomacy, and alliances with courtiers or sympathetic guards, they shaped outcomes that rulers themselves might have overlooked. Their influence, often invisible to the historical record, ensured that their voices and priorities endured despite the relentless machinery of conquest.